This morning, I woke up feeling something that I haven't felt in quite some time. It's that interesting combination of nervousness and excitement that I often felt back then on the first days of school. I felt it on the morning of our wedding, on the day we left for our year-long road trip, and on the first few international flights when we began full-time travel. It's that feeling that comes when a highly anticipated adventure or challenge is on the horizon, and it's evident that nothing will ever be the same again because the journey will simply be life-altering. Today I'm doing something I've never done before, and that is taking myself on my very first solo trip into the woods for 48 hours to discover my independence as an adult and as a woman. And if that's not something to feel both nervous and excited for, I don't know what is, but I'm 100% confident that this trip will be one of the trips I remember forever. Oh, that's awesome. Ooh. Hey, Gretel. The workspace. Oh, no way. It's just like our van. I just made it to the tiny house and I'm in love beyond words. This place is an absolute dream. I'm completely surrounded by forests, and this tiny house actually has windows on 3 sides of the cabin. And so I'm able to just look out and see trees swaying in the wind, watch the light dapple through all of the leaves. This is so, so beautiful, and I can't explain how quiet it is. I haven't experienced something like this in quite some time, and I know that Gretel is really, really enjoying it. Actually, when we pulled in, she immediately jumped out of the car and she was just sniffing around, exploring. And what was really exciting and kind of how I knew she was really comfortable with the area was she actually went to use the restroom outside, which, as we mentioned before, we've been trying to potty train her to do that outdoors. And I think it's just so peaceful and so quiet that she felt really comfortable doing that. So I'm just so pleased that she is satisfied with our little 2-day retreat. So driving in, it was actually my very first long distance independent drive. It was only 40 minutes long, but I've actually never driven by myself longer than 20 minutes. So that was a really big achievement for me, and the drive was great. Yeah, not many cars on the road. It's a Monday, so it was nice and open. I was able to even film coming into the tiny house. So that was kind of fun, just running back and forth, taking on both, being in the shots, but also being behind the camera. And without Chad here, I am playing all the roles. So I'm just so excited for the next 48 hours to see what this little solo trip brings for me, and honestly just how I'll feel at the end of it. But right now I'm feeling so, so good. I'm so proud of myself. I'm happy that I actually did it. I said I would do it and I finally did book the trip. So yeah, here's to the start of my little solo trip out in the mountains, out in the woods, and I can't wait to see what happens. As I was getting the food ready for this trip, I came to realize that this would be the very first time I'd be cooking for just one person, myself, for the entire time, and it was kind of funny how few ingredients I needed to make just 1 to 2 servings for all of my meals. While I was packing, I also realized that I had to be the one to get all the gear ready for filming, which has always been Chad's responsibility, and I even took the time to learn how to take a star time lapse because I had never taken one before. It's wild how this one trip is making me learn and think in so many new ways, and how it's pushing me to be a different version of myself. Isn't that the beauty of any trip taken, solo or with others? They just always unlock a part of us that we didn't even know existed. At the very start of this year, I sat down and decided that this would be the year I finally began my journey towards independence. And when I define independence for myself, it doesn't mean that I want to be alone in life and that I won't accept the help of others when needed. Independence to me is more so an assuring confidence that I can do things on my own and knowing that I'm strong, capable, and self-reliant as an adult and as a woman. For the most part, I've always known how to be on my own. I knew how to cook and clean, how to plan trips, how to run our business, all the basics to taking care of myself as an individual. But there were two important things that I'd never quite been able to overcome until this year. The first one was driving, and that was something I kept putting off because there was always someone around to give me a ride. I remember back in high school, my friends would always joke that I'd be 40 years old and still asking for a ride because no one thought I'd ever drive, including me. And it wasn't until this past year that I came to the realization that someday an emergency would probably come up and I would have to be the one to get behind the wheel. So I took it upon myself to learn how to drive and to learn how to pump gas because I am a big believer in the saying, it's never too late to learn. And after hours of driving long distances with Chad in the car, I finally took the leap and did my very first independent long distance drive on this trip. So as I previously mentioned, this tiny house is completely surrounded by trees in the woods, and there are actually a couple of private trails that I can take from the tiny house. So I think for Gretel's evening walk, we're gonna go for a stroll through the trees, and I'm gonna get her little collar on, and a bandana. Ooh, you're gonna look so beautiful for your walk. Here, let's do this. What a beautiful lady you are. Ready for your walk? The second thing that has always held me back was my lack of confidence in traveling alone as an Asian American woman. Even with Chad around, I've had my fair share of disappointing travel experiences where people treated me more like an object than a human being, and the thought of what more could have happened without the presence of Chad always made me a bit fearful. I didn't like that I've never felt confident taking a trip unless Chad was coming along with me, and as much as I absolutely adore traveling with Chad, I didn't want his presence to be the deciding factor as to whether I go on a trip or not. And so this solo adventure is something extremely significant to me in my journey towards a life of more confidence and independence, and it really is all about pushing myself far beyond the comfort zones I've always known. Growing up, I never touched a campfire. The only time I would even catch a whiff of burning wood would be in my backyard when neighbors had campfires or whenever we drove past campsites late at night. It was sometime during our year in the van where I finally learned how to build and maintain a steady and safe fire, and since then, I've become obsessed with burning wood and watching flames dance into the darkness of night. I could sit around a campfire for hours, just letting it mesmerize me deep into a trance unlike any other. So when I decided to take this solo trip, the least of my concerns was actually the extended amount of time I'd be spending completely alone. I feel like ever since I was a kid, I've always been a loner and I've always done very well completely by myself. And I actually recently took a personality test and my results came out to be that I'm 82% introverted. And I've always known that I'm an introvert, but I never thought it would be over 80% of like my personality. And right now, just being out in the woods and hearing the cicadas and the crickets and the crackle of the fire, I feel like I'm just recharging. Like I'm gonna have so much energy once I leave this place, because when I am alone, that's when I can kind of build myself back up, and that's when I get the creative ideas. The last couple of hours have been super fun. I've been collecting sticks all over, just building the fire up and then watching it die back down, building it back up. And yeah, it's been really exciting, and I can't wait to go to sleep in the middle of all of these trees and wake up to the sound of the forest. There is something so special about living amongst the great outdoors. More so than just taking a hike, just being here for an extended amount of time is really special, and I'm definitely extremely grateful to be here. After I got in bed last night, I literally laid in bed giggling to myself for 30 minutes. I kid you not, because I was so happy to be here. The process of falling asleep was definitely very tricky. And I just kept thinking to myself, like, the only thing that could bring the coziness of this place to the next level was a thunderstorm. And after I thought that, I heard some roars of thunder in the distance, and it just started pouring, and I was literally in heaven. I was so happy. The sound of the pitter-patter of the rain and the rumble of the thunder, it literally rocked me straight to sleep, and I slept throughout the entire night. Gretel did too. She was snoring so loud last night, so that means she was deep in sleep. And I woke up to a gorgeous foggy forest. It just felt so nice to have that window right by my bed, because when I opened my eyes, obviously I had to put my contacts in, but I was like, oh my goodness, the view is just so spectacular. So today it's going to be really relaxing. I have plans to do some drawing, some reading, and then I'm also going to be writing a letter to my future self. So in a year's time, I'll kind of open that letter and just see where I was at when I took my very first solo trip, because hopefully by this time next year, I would have racked up a couple more solo trips. We'll see. But yeah, beautiful weather, the sun's come out, and the rain has brought a nice coolness, and I'm definitely very appreciative of that.
I wanna take you far away, deep into the country, where we can be alone. I wanna give you all the space, so you can write a new set of songs. This land cannot live without the rain. The rain is worth nothing if it has
Well, I just finished up my 15-minute sketch of the forest, and this is actually my first time drawing this entire summer. I just haven't really had the interest to pull out my paints or my pastels to do any artwork. And I think it's because I've kind of just shifted my passions towards something else. And I was actually talking to Chad about this just the other night, about how if we were going to school right now, we would both be studying completely different things. Now that I'm out of college and we've traveled a little bit and I've been doing YouTube for the past 3 years, I think I would actually go to school for film and writing. That's kind of what I've taken on over the summer, but it did feel really good to draw again, and I feel like right now it's just muscle memory because I started drawing so early on in my life that, you know, if I did kind of leave it behind for a bit, I could pick it back up just like where I left it.
Counting steps to the back porch, same song from the screen door.
For dinner this evening, I will be making some salmon tacos. I'm gonna make some homemade salsa, some guacamole, and also some caramelized onions to go with it. And then I'll top it off with some organic seeds. So I'm gonna get started.
But he broke wide open like a bird in spring, with a divine potion made of love and pain. He was really living, yeah man, all the way, with a deep emotion made of love and pain.
Oh my gosh, I absolutely inhaled those salmon tacos. They were so good, like way better than I expected. I'm gonna go grab another one. So, as I had previously mentioned, it thunderstormed last night, so tonight I'm working with some rather wet wood. It probably won't go up as easily as I got it to go last night, but I'm determined. I'm gonna start it off with this empty egg carton, and hopefully I can get it going because it's actually way cooler tonight and I probably could use the warmth of a campfire. As I wrap up my time in the woods, it feels as if I've sparked a new interest and a new series of challenges for myself. My 48-hour solo trip went as good as it could have gone, and I'm very happy for that. But as I continue to plan for more solo trips, I want to still proceed with equal parts caution and challenge. There's a reason why I was nervous to travel alone as a woman, and I want to still acknowledge those reasons and be realistic about how the world operates while also pushing myself to get out there. Being secluded in the woods with my location shared with Chad at all times was a thought-out choice I made when booking this trip, and as I continue to take more solo trips in the future, whether it be local, domestic, or international, I will always make sure that safety is never overlooked. Tonight, I'm writing a letter to my future self, instructing for it to be opened in 1 year's time, and I'm doing this because I want a future version of me to see how much I've grown since this very moment. I hope that when I open this letter, I would have taken many more solo trips, maybe some to more surrounding states, and maybe one across the nation. I hope that I would have doubled my confidence behind the wheel and continued to pursue new passions and learn new skills that I might have never envisioned myself trying. But challenges and goals aside, I mostly just hope that I'm happy, like how I am now, and that I've truly lived a year to remember. Here's to the end of my very first solo trip and the start to an exhilarating season of solo travel.